Jeff Bova was a man with a passion for life. Known for his caring nature and his dedication to his family, he was described by his mom, Susan McIntyre, as compassionate, selfless, and always willing to help other people. He was also a dog lover, spending a lot of his time with his beloved pets. He had a deep bond with his family, especially his mom. He spoke to her every single day, and he was also known for his practical skills as a handyman. At the time of this incident, Jeff was literally days away from completing a project that he had started for his mother, building her a wooden stove for her patio. Well, damn, I wish my son knew how to build me anything. Well, it was this kind, hardworking nature that defined Jeff Bova, and his family fondly remembered him as someone who would go that extra mile for the people that he loved. Jeff wasn't just a loving son, he was also an engaged fiance. We don't know much about his fiance or their relationship, but we do know that he was preparing for a wedding shortly before all of this happened. And when he was facing his final moments, his fiance sadly was standing right by his side. Despite this looming wedding, which would probably stress somebody out, Jeff continued to balance his personal life with his work and his passion for helping others, especially his family. His close relationship with his mother is very poignant, as Susan shared that the last words that he said to her were about the unfinished project that he was looking forward to completing for her. Jeff was somebody who treasured those small moments in life. Well, in March of 2023, this 41-year-old man's life was cut short, about a month after his encounter with deathly standing water. Just after a rainstorm, Jeff chased his dog into a pond in San Diego County. At the time, he had a small cut on his arm, and unbeknownst to him, the water that he chased the dog into was teeming with dangerous bacteria. This seemingly innocent act of wading into standing water quickly led to a life-threatening infection. Now, within hours of him coming in contact with this water, Jeff's arm began to swell and painful blisters developed. The infection, which was later diagnosed as necrotizing fasciitis, rapidly spread and Jeff's condition worsened. Despite attempting to treat this condition at home with antibiotic creams, he lasted a few weeks, but the pain was just so unbearable that eventually he sought hospital care. But tragically, it was too late. And just 2 days after he got to the hospital, he passed away. Necrotizing fasciitis, often referred to as flesh-eating bacteria, is a rare and deadly infection that can result from bacteria such as Streptococcus A entering through broken skin. My grandmother, who was a nurse, would be so proud of me for trying to pronounce all these medical terms, and I don't even know what any of them mean. Yes, Nana, it only took me this long to finally make you proud. The progression of necrotizing fasciitis is alarmingly fast. Symptoms include painful swelling, fever, fatigue, vomiting, and red or purplish areas of the skin. Ooh. As the infection advances, it causes tissue death, often leading to organ failure. The infection is highly aggressive and can become fatal within hours or days if not treated immediately with powerful antibiotics and sometimes surgery. In Jeff's case, the bacteria most likely entered his body through the small cut on his arm, leading to the rapid destruction of his soft tissue. As described by his mother, the infection was excruciating. Jeff described the pain as acid running down his arm as it oozed. Tragically, despite treatment, he succumbed to this infection. However, this bacteria is not contagious from person to person through simple touch or anything like that. Jeff's story emphasizes the importance of quick medical intervention when any cut or injury shows signs of infection. Necrotizing fasciitis requires immediate treatment to prevent it from spreading, and even then, the survival rate can be as low as 66%. Susan McIntyre's message to the public is very clear. Stay away from standing water, especially after it rains, because there's just a ton of bacteria in it. She urges anyone who gets a cut or scratch to seek medical attention right away if their symptoms worsen. This bacteria costs 1/3 of patients their lives. That's not a small percentage. Had Jeff sought medical help sooner, his chances of survival may have been greater. The reason he didn't seek professional intervention sooner was simply due to his aversion to doctors. He just didn't like going to the hospital. And I can understand where he's coming from, because it's very common for a lot of people to just dread the idea of going anywhere near doctors and hospitals, and being poked and prodded while they're there. So he figured if he waited it out, his body would just heal itself. It was a gamble that sadly cost him his life. Although Jeff's untimely passing leaves his friends and his family direly stricken with a sense of loss, it also serves as a cautionary tale for the rest of us. It's a reminder to be very vigilant about even the smallest cuts and injuries when you're exposing yourself to environmental factors like standing water. What is standing water? It's water that has stopped flowing or has very minimal movement. It can accumulate in depressions in the ground, forming big puddles, ponds, lakes, or even marshes. And standing water can be dangerous to human health and the environment because it can lead to the development of harmful pathogens and biofilms. These biofilms are collections of bacteria or fungi that can grow in the water due to a lack of aeration, meaning there's not enough oxygen flowing through that water. In a world where we often overlook the dangers lurking around us, tell us in the comments, how do you personally deal with injuries like this one, small cuts and scrapes? I know for me, I don't really make a big fuss over it usually. What steps should public health systems take to better inform people about the risks associated with standing water, especially after rainfall? Before hearing about this case, I had no idea that somebody could develop a flesh-eating bacteria that could kill them like this. Did you? We want to conclude this story by sending positive energy and prayers to Jeff Bova's family members and friends, who I hope are able to find some type of healing after losing him so unexpectedly. You really don't know how much time is written for you or your loved ones. Nobody's promised tomorrow. So always tell your special someones, no matter how cheesy, no matter how corny you sound, that you love them. Tell them you're proud to have them in your life and give somebody a hug every single day. Well, okay, not just anybody. Like, don't just walk up to people on the streets and be like, I feel like I should give you a hug. That probably wouldn't turn out so good, but you know what I'm saying. The people who are around you that know you and love you. I want to share a story that's both heartbreaking and eye-opening. It's about a 15-year-old girl named Alexi Stafford, who's from Weston, Florida. Alexi was not just another teenager. She was the type of person you would describe as an old soul. People described her as kind and having a sense of maturity. She had 2 older sisters and a younger brother and was deeply loved by her family and her friends. She was considered very sweet, thoughtful, and careful, especially when it came to her health. Because like so many of us, Alexi had something that she needed to be watching out for. Not only was she asthmatic, but she also had a very severe allergy to peanuts. You see, Alexi was very careful about what she ate. She was always mindful about her allergy, and she was very aware of foods that were and weren't safe for her to consume. She even had a routine. Before she ate anything, she would always check the labels, double check the packaging, and make sure everything was okay. She knew her limits. Now, Alexi's story might sound very familiar to you if you especially know someone who has a food allergy. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a loved one, maybe it's you. So imagine this. Alexi is at her friend's house when she did something that she thought was pretty safe. She reached for a cookie that she saw out in her friend's room. It was a package that she had seen a bajillion times before. It was a red, chewy Chips Ahoy package, but this time it wasn't the same cookie. Think about your own family and friends who have food allergies. How often do we take eating something safe for granted? So what went wrong? On June 25th of 2018, Alexi made a mistake. Very simple mistake. While she's at her friend's house, she grabbed one of the cookies from out of this package. Because she was very familiar with the red Chips Ahoy packaging, which she normally ate, she thought that these cookies were safe for her to eat. The problem? The top of the packaging had been peeled back and the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup label was hidden. She basically didn't see that these cookies had peanut butter in them. Alexi took a bite and she immediately felt like something was wrong. It was the tingling in her mouth. That's often the first sign of an allergic reaction. She went home as quickly as she could, told her mother what had happened. Her mother, Kelly, gave her 2 EpiPen shots immediately, hoping that this was going to stop the reaction in enough time for the paramedics to get there and assist further. But it was already too late. Despite their best efforts, Alexi went into anaphylactic shock. She stopped breathing and lost consciousness within just an hour and a half of eating that one cookie. Alexi was gone forever. Anaphylactic shock is a severe, life-threatening allergic reaction that can happen rapidly after exposure to an allergen. Here is a breakdown of what happens to the body during anaphylactic shock. Immune system response. When the body is exposed to an allergen like peanuts, for example, the immune system mistakenly identifies it as a harmful substance, even though it's usually harmless. The body releases a large amount of chemicals, such as histamine, which are intended to protect the body. However, these chemicals cause severe allergic reactions when released in large amounts. Airway constriction. Histamine and other chemicals cause the muscles around the airways to tighten, leading to swelling in the throat and difficulty breathing. The airways narrow and become inflamed, which leads to wheezing, which is a very high-pitched sound while you're breathing. This can be very dangerous as it can lead to a lack of oxygen and difficulty breathing, which can then be fatal if not treated quick enough. Blood pressure drop. Anaphylaxis causes blood vessels to dilate or expand, which leads to a sharp drop in blood pressure. This sudden drop can cause dizziness, fainting, or even shock, where the heart struggles to pump enough blood to the organs and tissues. When blood pressure drops too low, it can cause organs like the heart, brain, and kidneys to be deprived of oxygen. Very, very dangerous. Rapid heart rate. To try to compensate for the drop in your blood pressure, the heart will start beating faster. This is a response to ensure that the body tries to maintain adequate circulation. Skin reactions. Many people experience hives, swelling, or redness in the skin as a result of the body's allergic response. The skin may appear flush or pale, and there can be a lot of itching and swelling, especially around the face, lips, and throat. Now, I've never experienced this, but I have experienced an allergic reaction where I ended up with hives, and oh my gosh, that's not fun at all. My whole body was just like a big red rash everywhere from top to bottom, all over the place, so itchy. I can't even describe it. It's excruciatingly itchy, and no amount of scratching is gonna make it subside. So I had to get medicine from a hospital in order to make the hives go away. So this is like even more severe than that? No. Gastrointestinal symptoms. Some people might also experience stomach cramps, nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea due to the body's immune system reaction. These symptoms are usually the result of the body trying to expel the allergen. If the symptoms progress without treatment, the person can lose consciousness due to lack of oxygen or the body's inability to circulate the blood properly. The immediate treatment for anaphylaxis is an EpiPen, which contains epinephrine that should rapidly reverse the symptoms by constricting the blood vessels, which helps to raise your blood pressure back up, relaxing the airway muscles, making it easier for you to breathe, and reducing swelling in your throat. Without quick intervention, usually within minutes, anaphylaxis can be fatal. That's why it's critical to treat it with an EpiPen immediately and seek emergency medical help. While EpiPens are highly effective in treating anaphylaxis, there are several reasons why these might not have been enough to save somebody's life in a case like Alexi's. Remember, when she got home, her mom gave her 2 shots. Here are a few possible reasons. Timing and severity. Timing is critical during anaphylaxis. If the allergic reaction is too severe and progresses rapidly, even immediate administration of epinephrine may not be enough to counteract the effects quickly. In Alexi's case, the reaction was so severe that she went into anaphylactic shock, and within about an hour and a half of eating this cookie, she was unconscious and had already stopped breathing. The reaction was probably very fast acting, overwhelming her body before the epinephrine could fully reverse the symptoms she was suffering from. Delayed or inadequate dosage. While 2 doses of epinephrine were administered, it's possible that the dosage was not sufficient enough to combat the severity of the reaction at the time. For some people, they might require additional dosages of epinephrine if their body is not reacting to the medicine fast enough after the first dose, especially if the reaction is really intense. In some cases, the person might just end up needing multiple doses. Underlying health conditions. Alexi had this peanut allergy, but she also had asthma, which could have compounded the severity of her reaction. Asthma can make the respiratory systems of anaphylaxis more complicated, and harder to treat, as it might already limit airflow within the lungs. If the allergic reaction wasn't just affecting her throat, but also her lungs, it would have been harder to reverse with just epinephrine alone. Delayed access to medical care. Even with epinephrine available, immediate medical intervention is crucial. Alexi was administered the epinephrine while waiting for paramedics, but the time it took for emergency responders to arrive and provide further treatment could have impacted her survival chances. The longer the reaction progresses, the harder it gets to stabilize the person, even with epinephrine. Refractory anaphylaxis. Some people experience refractory anaphylaxis, meaning that their symptoms do not respond well to epinephrine, and their condition continues to worsen despite treatment. The phenomenon is rare, but it can happen, particularly in severe cases. While epinephrine is the first-line treatment for anaphylaxis and it can save lives, the rapid progression of the allergic reaction, the severity of the symptoms, potential underlying conditions like asthma, and timing issues all likely played a role in why the 2 EpiPens that her mother gave her wasn't enough to save Alexi's young life. Immediate medical care after epinephrine is absolutely critical. So have you ever grabbed a snack thinking it's safe because it just looks familiar? How often do we overlook things like labels or packaging details, assuming that everything is fine? Share your experiences in the comments. This tragedy, as heartbreaking as it is, didn't just affect Alexi's family alone. It struck a chord with thousands of people, including other parents of kids that have food allergies, people who could understand exactly what Kelly, Alexi's mom, was going through. The mother, Kelly Stafford, took to Facebook to warn others about the dangers of confusing packaging. She expressed her frustration, basically saying that the packaging for the Reese's Chips Ahoy cookies looked way too similar to the regular chewy Chips Ahoy cookies. In fact, the red packaging was the same. There were no clear warnings that these cookies contained peanut butter, at least according to Alexi's mom. Kelly called on the company to make packaging more distinguishable to help prevent mistakes like this from happening again. Chips Ahoy responded by saying that they take allergies seriously and that their packaging already includes clear allergen labeling. They encouraged consumers to always read the labels. Many netizens felt this just wasn't enough to prevent confusion. The Facebook post where Kelly warned others has received widespread attention, over 40,000 likes and 67,000 shares, showing just how many people connected with this tragedy. So now this takes us down another rabbit hole as it pertains to whose fault this tragedy is, or how preventable it really was. In response to Alexi Stafford's tragic death, netizens have expressed a range of opinions. While many supported Alexi's mom, Kelly Stafford, and her call for better labeling and packaging, there were also some opposing or critical viewpoints from others. Here are some of the main opposing opinions expressed online. Responsibility of the consumer. Some individuals pointed out that personal responsibility should play a larger role in preventing allergic reactions. These netizens argued that while it is tragic, individuals with known allergies should always be vigilant about reading labels and checking ingredients, even if the packaging looks very familiar. They expressed the opinion that the onus is on consumers to question food products when in doubt, rather than relying on food companies to make all of the changes. Some said that it wasn't enough to just rely solely on packaging cues, and that people who have severe food allergies need to always ask before they consume food in unfamiliar settings to make sure it's okay for them to eat. Frustration with overregulation. Another group of netizens raised concerns that the call for food companies to make more drastic changes in their packaging might lead to overregulation or unnecessary modifications. They argued that the existing allergen warnings and color coding on the packaging were already sufficient, and that changing these labels could result in increased production costs and confusing packaging variations. Some people felt that too much emphasis was being placed on the company rather than a broader effort to educate individuals about managing their allergies. They questioned whether the call for an overhaul of packaging was a disproportionate response to a very unfortunate but rare event, casual consumption in an unfamiliar place. Some online comments suggested that the real responsibility could lie with Alexi herself. They questioned why Alexi, knowing she had a peanut allergy, would eat a cookie at a friend's house without first confirming the ingredients, especially concerning her awareness of the potential allergens. While still sympathetic, a lot of people pointed out that it's very, very important for people who have severe food allergies to be very conscious of communicating and being cautious when they're in social settings. Maybe the friend's family just wasn't aware that this girl had a really bad peanut allergy, or maybe they wouldn't even had that cookie out in the open. But basically people were saying, she's 15. She already is very aware that she has this really, really bad allergy. She didn't pay enough attention to protect herself, so it's really her own fault. That does sound harsh to hear, but it's the internet. Criticism of emotional reactions and calls for change. A few people took issue with the emotional tone of Kelly Trevor Stafford's Facebook posts and her public demands for changes to the packaging. They argued that while her grief was very understandable, of course, the response that she gave might not have been the best solution. Some felt that focusing too much on the company's role in this tragedy might distract from larger issues like better allergy education and improving access to health care for those with severe allergies so that they can have access to things like EpiPens. They suggested that legislation and broader educational efforts could have more lasting benefits than just focusing on one company's product design. Do you agree with that? What do you guys think about that? These opposing opinions reflect a variety of perspectives that highlight the complex nature of the conversation around food allergies, personal responsibility, corporate responsibility, and the emotional toll such tragedies take on families. So think about the last time you bought something that looked familiar. Did you double check the packaging to see if there was some kind of warning there? I mean, how many of us are really reading every label every time? I know I don't, but then again, I don't live with anyone that has severe food allergies like this, so this isn't just about one girl or one family. It's really about thousands of people who are out here living with food allergies every day. Did you know that peanuts are the most common food allergy in children who live in the US? And while most allergic reactions aren't deadly, when somebody goes into anaphylactic shock, it can be fatal within minutes, if not treated immediately, as we see with Alexi's situation. The CDC warns that if you have a known food allergy, you should always carry an EpiPen with you everywhere you go. But even with an EpiPen, things can go wrong. That's what makes Alexi's case so tragic. A simple mistake that anybody could have made. A tiny slip up with the packaging. It led to a loss that just can't be undone. So the key point here is always read the labels, even when you think that it's safe. Even if that packaging looks really familiar, it's just so important to be extra careful when trying new products or eating at other people's homes. And obviously, I mean, we're talking about people who have food allergies here. If you're not allergic, then it's not an issue. But definitely, if you or someone that you're around all the time has a food allergy, these are things that we need to be paying attention to. If you or somebody that you love has an allergy, make sure you're always carrying an EpiPen, and make sure that everybody around who's old enough to use it knows how to use it, just in case there's an emergency. Make sure the child with the allergy, siblings of that child, any kids that are around that child that live with them or in like constant contact with them, that they're fully aware of how to check ingredients before they eat things. It's also okay to just decline an offer of food if you don't know what's in it. My household doesn't eat pork products, and some foods don't always look or smell porky. So I always remind my children, if they're offered food that didn't come from this household, and they're not sure if there's pork products in it or not, just say no. It's okay to refrain from eating the food. You're not going to be considered rude or ungrateful. You know, you can explain to people, I can only eat certain kinds of foods, or my parents won't let me eat at strangers' houses. Whatever excuse you need to come up with, just don't eat it. Now, thankfully, we're not actually allergic to pork, so even if my kids do accidentally consume it, there's no risk that anyone's gonna die. Still, it's just smart to educate the children because we can't be with them all the time. We can prevent a mistake like this from happening to someone else's kid. Although people keep saying that this incident is very rare, I still would hate to be part of that small percentage of people that this happens to, especially when it's very preventable. So if you found this story important and want to stay informed about other cases like this, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel, like, share the videos with other people to help us to grow. And every time you interact with the channel, it makes it easier for other people who have the same interest to find these videos faster. Because this series is not just about raising awareness, it's also about staying proactive so that we can protect ourselves and our loved ones. So thank you guys so much for listening. Stay safe and always check those labels if you have food allergies. I'm Gypsy, your host. I'ma see you in the next one. Ciao.